what you have to look at, most people don't look at it, they're looking at the 180 million incentive, but you have to look at the 900 million that's coming in.
Right.
Like, don't look at the budget that's coming in. Don't look at the, the tax rate. And so there's a lot of politics that's in that, and I think it's a constant fight. I think the thing that gets counted out is that at the end of the day, people want to work with people that they feel comfortable with and are just good people. And you can kind of suss through that stuff, in person.
Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And here with me in this conversation is my co-founder and good friend, Nicholas Buggs, and our esteemed guest, Frank Monteleone. Frank, Nick, say hello.
You first, Nick.
See, there you go. What's up, folks? It's good to be here as usual. It's awesome to have a guest today. I think these guest conversations are so cool, and it's just so awesome to have Frank with us today. So, Frank, you're up, man.
Yeah, I love being here with you guys. Like I said, I'm a lifelonger after hearing you guys and everything you're about, and so I'm really I'm excited for this time together.
I love it. Can you tell the people sort of a little bit of background on who you are, what you've been up to, speaking of your history in film?
Yeah. So my name is Frank Monteleone. I'm a filmmaker. I run and founded Full Armor Films. I've had it since about 2005. We started in New York, started as a one-man wrecking crew up there and doing commercials and working up there really with the eye on narrative. Got into full post-production, moved out to LA, did post-production for a long time, and then realized development is where I wanted to be on the front end, and then became a full-fledged development house. And now we went from New York to LA to New Orleans, and now we're based out of New Orleans.
Is that where you're at right now? You in New Orleans?
So it looks like it. New Orleans. I'm actually traveling right now. I mean, this is Chicago behind me.
Yeah, Chicago. I love Chicago.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's nice and crisp here.
Are you a deep dish guy? Like, are you going, or do you do that pizza? Or are you more like an Italian sandwich guy?
I feel like
wait
a second. Wait a second, Chris. What are you talking about Italian, bro?
Don't they have those Italian?
No. The question is the question is whether or not he's a deep dish Chicago or if he's a Sicilian. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get it straight. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
Okay,
man.
I like that question. I like that.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say my answer is I feel like if I'm doing Chicago deep dish, I'm a traitor to the New York, the New York pizza that I feel like I grew up in, down in New York. So yeah,
it's true. I'm headed to New York.
That's awesome.
Like doing the whole Christmas in New York thing, and having had both of those pizzas, I have to tell you, man, I'm a New York guy. I like a little bit thinner crust. I don't like all that dough. The deep dish is good that first time, and then you're like, it'll wreck your whole day, man.
It just
it slows you down.
Yeah, no, I'm a sucker for deep dish. It's great, but just so New York, Joe and Pat's Pizza. Most people don't know it because they hit up the other Joes, but there's a Joe and Pat's Pizza, 1957. That'll wreck your world.
I'm writing that down. So I went to Joe's, but I might have went to the wrong one. I went to the one. There's one in Times Square, right? Like right outside Times Square. I went to that one.
That's one everybody goes to, man.
Right. That's wrong.
Speaking of food, Nick, how was your? This is just so for posterity. We're recording this at the end of November 30th. How was your Thanksgiving, sir?
Oh man, mine was great. I mean, there was also I think we mentioned this before. Like, I don't do the turkey.
I wanted you to cash the check on our promise to the audience that you were going to explain why you aren't American.
It's just dry, bro. Like, generally speaking, it's just dry. Like, if I had my options, right, do you go for the dry turkey or you go for the ham? And my dad always kills the ham. Like, he makes a ham that, like, you would literally, I'm just telling you this right now, you would walk up to your mama and you slap your mama after you have this ham, right? So, I know my mom hates when my dad makes ham. So,
shout out to Senior
great.
Bugs.
Yeah, but this year he was not well and he didn't make the ham. So we had turkey that was made by my in-laws, and I have to say they did it, man. They hooked it up. They smoked one. They did something else. Like, They hooked it up. It was delicious. We had that. We had salmon, like all the different things, and they hooked it up. I can't complain. My wife made a little, sweet potato souffle? You know, you got to put that little.
I love sweet potato souffle. That's so good.
There you go. Put the little marshmallows on the top. Man, I'm over here, you know, doing one of these. Like, why you got me talking about food?
I hear there's no better way to do a turkey. And look, my Thanksgiving was great. I had just a convivium of meats and fake meats and sides and vegetables.
Well, wait. And Frank, now I'm a language guy. I'm a words guy, right? But I'm gonna have to go look up convivium, and then we're gonna. I'm like, what? And then I'm gonna have to put that in the show notes so everybody else can understand what the heck that is.
You got a nice
he didn't even use cornucopia.
I think Frank, I honestly thought like everybody uses cornucopia at Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
and the Hunger Games is out, so I thought, don't use cornucopia. Don't use cornucopia. Figure out another word to use, and so I went convivium.
Yeah, you went convivium.
Yeah, kill me, kill me.
Let's do it.
Anyway, it was great, and I tell you what, I heard that the best way to have a turkey is to spatchcock it. And years ago, I heard that word, and the first thing I thought was, this is what happens when you get plaster on your crotch. I had no clue it had anything to do with turkeys, like spatchcock.
Spatchcock.
But it is apparently like the new fried turkey. Like, you know, a fried turkey had its moment. Yeah. This is where we're at. So, all right, let's get into some film talk. There's a lot going on in the world. We can take this anywhere you want to go, but I do want some background, at least on Full Armor. What that process was like just to get the company started. And to take that leap of faith to say, this is it for me. I am going to be someone who is doing film, working in film, whether it be the commercial space, cinema space, whatever. Mm-hmm. What was that like for you? I assume you had some doubters in your family, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, doubters, I kind of always was one growing up knowing I was always going to be in this space. I was always going to be an actor. I was always going to be with movies, and that was going to be the pursuit since I was really young. So I went to school for it, went to college for acting and theater, actually. And then, but I was always making films all the way through. So I was always teaching myself. And whenever we had to put something on stage, I was making a film version of it. So by the time I got out, really, you know, Full Armor came out of desperation. You know, I needed a job. I went to college in New York. Friends of mine, I went to actually high school down in Florida at a creative arts college, high school. And then their advice was go to the city you want to live in after. And so it was between New York and LA. And I was looking at LA. I applied both ways. And then New York, I decided to go to just for the acting side of things. And I would keep pursuing film on the side. And so by the time I graduated, I needed a job. I was, you know, shuffling manila envelopes, trying to apply to every production company. I was hitting up every production that was shooting in and around New York. And I didn't get one response. So I did what every practical person would do, is I printed my own business cards, printed my own stuff. And I started going around knocking on doors. And so it really came out of a place of desperation. But like, as you said, you know, I wanted to keep making no matter what. So that was the birth. I was kind of a one-man wrecking crew, as we said, like a predator. You know, I was able to produce, edit, and direct, and just put it up.
I love that.
Nice. That's awesome, man. It's two things, right? It's the desperation that you mentioned, but it's also, you knew from a young age, this is what you were going to do. So it wasn't just a matter of how you were going to do it and whether or not someone was going to give you the opportunity, or if you were going to take the opportunity, and you took it. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you knew you were actually good enough to be successful at it? I know you've been an actor in a few things, Queen Sugar for a couple episodes, Focus, Bull. You've gotten this acting work. And when you were talking just then, I was reminded of a friend of ours, former guest, Joshua Bermudez. I think he might have changed his name. He might have a pseudonym now, Nick, but we know him as Joshua Bermudez. He gave me some great advice on what he teaches actors, because he had a course as well, like a class. and he would basically say, I put an actor in an empty room and see what they do with their hands. Because most people that are new to acting think they have to do something with their hands, or don't know what to do with their hands, or don't know what to do with their body. Like if they find a wall, they will lean on it. If they have pockets, they'll stuff their hands in it. What do you think about that? Does that resonate with you? Like how would you know someone is connecting from a craft standpoint as an actor, and how did you see that in yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's interesting because I think if, just the idea of putting yourself alone in a room, he's really onto something, because I think most of the work that gets done, at least from the acting standpoint, and really you could say this from any creative spot, is really what you do in the dark, what you do alone, what you do in the studio, if you will. And so to have eyes on that, you can really observe that. But, that's what my background is. Shakespeare. I went out to Oxford. I studied out there. So theater was really my background. And I remember we would just lock ourselves in studios to get off book, on Shakespeare. And it would just, because it would take you hours, and it's really that space. So I think it's just being alone with yourself, and I think that's what he's really hitting with. And then can you bring you to the table with
that's the toughest thing,
performance,
right?
And then that, if you can sit with yourself long enough in the dark to find that authentic, whatever you're bringing in the creative, this is kind of true from writing to acting as well. But from acting in particular, if you can bring yourself authentically, then usually you see something that's worth working on and continuing.
I had this friend named Scott Kimmery that got me into film. And Nick, you may have heard the story before in the past. I know you know who Scott is. Scott is shout out to Scott Kimmery if you're listening to this for whatever reason. I love you, and you inspired me to be in film, whether you know that or not. But he would always talk about these parties he would throw where you would have to pick a character in advance and then be that character like all night long. And that's a game. I think that's a game that has a name. I can't remember the name of it, but the twist I think that he would have on it is like someone else would pick your character for you, or you'd have to pick a character out of a hat. So you didn't have a chance to prepare to be sort of that person. And I think that's an interesting and weird way sort of to learn how to bring yourself into the character, because on one hand you're pretending, but on the other hand, it's real life. Yeah. Like if you pick sex worker, how is that going to play out for you the rest of the night?
Right.
That's an interesting, very compelling, potentially dangerous. Like it's not a game for the weak at heart at all. Like, so I don't know. There's a lot of techniques.
Dude, I could play that role.
You could?
You try to throw that at me.
Sex
you
worker?
Like sex worker, bro? Yeah, easy. I could be at the party. I'm like, I'm on vacation. You know what I'm saying? Hey, don't come at me with that stuff. Yeah. I'm taking a break. You know what I'm saying?
You would duck it by being on vacation, and I would leave rich.
See, right?
I'd be like, here are my rates. This is what it's going to cost you.
Put it on the table.
It's got to be real money.
That does sound fun. That's like better than the murder mystery nights, because then you just don't know who's at the table, who's at the party. It gets dangerous, gets crazy. Yeah,
there could be a movie written around that, right? Like, where one person isn't who they say they are, even though while they're pretending to not be somebody else anyway. Yeah, like it's almost like Wedding Crashers, but for horror. Right. Like that would be kind of a cool movie, right? Like that'd be interesting.
Oh, there's a show right now that I want to watch. I think it's actually called Jury Duty, where it's like
I've heard of this.
I've heard of this. Yes. Yeah, you heard of it. Basically, like there's.
Oh my god,
you did watch it? Was it good?
So good. I mean, those actors.
Okay, I'm on it.
It's really good. I heard. At least
James
I heard.
Marsden kills it too. Like that poor guy. I still think. I feel for that guy. I mean, I think he would need years of therapy. I mean, seriously, just but yeah, that reminds me in college, speaking of people who got you into stuff, one of the best professors I had was this guy, David Lee, and he had us do this thing called pastiche. Do you know pastiche is?
No, that's
so if you look up pastiche, essentially you have to take an artist or someone and you basically have to do their whole life. But he had you write it, you had to research the person, and then you had to basically completely embody that. So you're not taking a play or a script or something, you're actually bringing the whole life of the person. And that would be cool with those. And that actually changed a lot of my approach, because you had to find, like to you say, it could get dangerous. I did Jimmy Cagney, and I remember figuring out in his life, like a huge pivotal point of his life. And then I had to write what that experience was like for him, even though I had no clue. But with all that you bring, like you could get to some serious stuff. And it's a great approach to just acting in general, because usually we just take what's on the page, but to put a life behind it.
There's a through line through that whole thing, Nick, which is that basically you have to go to these uncomfortable places to get to the real, to get it. It's just being in the dark, but in a different way. Mm-hmm. What Frank was saying.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, because like one of the characters that I love, the Shakespearean character is Othello. Mm-hmm. And man, I tell you, Lawrence Fishburne's Othello, that kind of epitomized some of that for me. I was like, man, he played this so well. And just the idea that someone would mess with your life in such just a horrific way, honestly. I just felt it in my stomach. I mean, there's a line in there, man, that you can think about, and because I'm going to say it, but you think about it in so many ways and it translates. But before Othello does himself in, he says, "And I took by the throat the circumcised dog and smote him thus." And man, like when he says it, I'm just,
man, this is amazing,
dude. I love it. This is what happens when we have guests like you, bro. Like you get inspired, seriously, But like when you hear that, when he says that, when he took by the throat, like he realizes what he has become through all of this, and you just think about that, and you just kind of sit, and it resonates, and you feel that. And if you can feel that in a character, like you're just saying, then you can bring out the appropriate type of emotion based off of that experience. Yeah. And that's awesome.
It's one of the best characters, man. I watched David I'm going to say his name wrong, right? Oyeo? Is it?
Onyewu?
Onyewu, yeah. Insert Brad Pitt's, his whole speech. I don't know if you saw that. He has the best speech trying to pronounce his name. But I saw his Othello with Daniel Craig. And
Daniel Craig, yep.
And yeah, it was unbelievable. Like, look up.
Okay. I got to watch that.
Yeah, it was incredible. But you're right. It's one of the best, man. And when it moves like that.
Yeah, it's filled.
It's just,
I want to take advantage, by the way, of just having someone who's on both sides of the sort of hiring spectrum, right? Like, you could go get an acting job tomorrow, but you could also go and hire an actor as an EP and as a producer. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get your perspective on, as an actor, how you view self-tape versus audition, this sort of new thing that's happening where basically almost everything is self-tape. And then as a producer, when you're trying to cast, like, do you have a harder time, easier time? What is your feeling when you have to look at a self-tape versus an in-person audition?
Oh, that's a great question. Candidly, I'll say as a producer, I enjoy in-person better. Because I just, I think the thing that gets counted out is that at the end of the day, people want to work with people that they feel comfortable with and are just good people. And you can kind of suss through that stuff, in person. And not to say that there's bad, but I've been in rooms where, you're just like, you're doing everything wrong, right? Like from just the improper, stuff that you're just like, okay, we are not going to be able to create a safe space together, right? In person. But on camera now with on self-tape, I mean, selfishly as an actor, I do love it because I control the environment. I control the time. what I put in. I know a lot about camera setup, different things that can help that, so, and then I've just learned by being on both sides that you usually do know within 30 seconds. And it's not for anything other than just if the person's right or wrong. If you're hitting it tone, like things, you just kind of, it's one of those pieces. But I think now that we're on the other side of the strike, if you've seen it now, and they are now creating space where you can request, an appointment.
Okay.
So it's a Zoom. You have that chance to be in the room, and that to me was, even before this. There was, when you started to get into some of these episodics and stuff, which really showed me how much we were going to decentralize our industry in a way, because I was getting producer calls as an actor, and there's an appointment, and it was through an EcoCast, and I'm in the room with all the producers, the directors. And it's essentially just like this podcast. We're all in the same room together. It's just virtually. So I think now that that's accepted, you get a little bit of best of both worlds. And I think we'll see more of that in the next few years of grow.
Yeah, I hope so. When you were acting, did you ever request your tapes, and did producers send you tapes when you requested it?
When did I request to be an appointment versus self-tape?
No. Did you request your audition tape? Back when when you act in person, some of these producers are going to ask you to do some pretty outrageous stuff in the audition, depending on what your character is. You might not want them to own that. And then it leaks somewhere later.
Right.
And be used to sort of stand on you in contract negotiation, or just some of these nightmare stories I've heard.
Yeah.
Did you ever request your tape from a producer? Was that difficult?
No, I haven't. I guess I haven't had a tape or an experience where I thought, I don't want that out.
You don't want them to have, right?
Yeah, honestly, get my take on the strike and stuff. One thing I do kind of wish, even though I know it would be a double-edged sword, is I just wish you had, as a producer, we had to pay for auditions. And as an actor, I want to be even if it's $20 bucks, $50, because the amount of work, we're in such a, microwave culture that it's just like, if you're in music, it's like, you can't just put a demo. You can't put something kind of just, oh yeah, now I know the difference. Even with films, they say, oh, you can submit to that film festival. They'll know what it's like without the real sound or color. Mm-hmm. You don't do it. Everyone is in finished product mode. So your self-tape, for all intents and purposes, I'll talk to actors, it's like, you're kind of putting up the work that is 80% there, or you're giving no work to it. Like, you're just kind of putting something up and you're the right type. I have friends that do either. They don't do any work on it. It's basically almost teleprompter, right? And then there's the other version where you're putting probably 80% of the work into the actual audition. So when you show up, it's basically the work's already done if you get the job.
Got it. Yeah, I actually don't dislike the idea, because one of me and Nick's big tenets as EPs is skin in the game. We just believe that. I believe that in business in general, that all you have to do is figure out, you can almost see where the fraud is going to come from, and it's going to come from the person who has the least skin in the game. The person who won't attach themselves and risk everything to get the outcome. You want people, and the other way Nick would say it, probably, not to speak for you while you're on this podcast, but it's like he would say no mercenaries, because when somebody's not a mercenary, they're just as enthusiastic about the project as you. They're in it with you. There's a commitment on both sides. A dangerous contract is one where there's not a consideration on both sides of the contract by both parties. And I think that when you don't pay an actor to come in, then it's completely one sided, and the power dynamic is completely flipped in one direction. Whereas if you had to pay them now, it would be unacceptable for you to come unprepared as a producer to meet each one of these actors, or to leave early, or to call the audition short, or whatever, unless you literally just found the person that's going to play the part. Right. So I love I actually haven't heard anybody mention that, and I love it.
This is the thing. It's like, it creates appreciation. I remember when doing theater, there was a producer early days in New York. They were doing off-Broadway, and they created that all tickets were free. And they just thought, they're going to put everyone in, and they were going to do this thing, because they were trying to get their show to Broadway. And it pushed back in the worst way because audience didn't really care for the show because they didn't pay for it. It's just this little element of appreciation. You just pay $10, $20 to your point. The double-edged sword is you're going to see less people, right? But if you're not going to get these thousands of submissions, but you're going to be really strategic with that 100 that you bring in because you've budgeted that. And you're right. How much more are you going to, is the person that's sitting in front of you, are you going to take that time to appreciate just the work that they're putting in? And the person's getting paid to do it, so they're going to put work into your work. And even as a writer or as a producer, I'm going to feel better because I know I'm paying the person to be there.
And they're giving him an incentive. But here's the question that I have. Like, we do have a lot of conversation about the self-tape and other things. Like, I kind of wonder, because filmmaking is such a family affair. Yeah. Right? Like you said, you want to work with people that you respect, that you love, that love you, that are going to be down for you. How much do you actually go outside of your circle to find actors for your work? And here's one of the reasons why I asked the question. One is because we're talking about self-tape and that environment. But the other one is the little bit of pushback that I put on folks when they try to, I have to say this as nicely as possible, but how they try to push diversity, equity, and inclusion on folks. And here's why I give, there's a negative connotation, or can be, is that because it's so familial, it's such a thing about relationships, it's not that you're keeping people out. It's that you're comfortable with the people that you've worked with. And depending where you're from, those people might have a certain accent. They might have a certain hair color, right? They might look a certain way. So for you, like, how often do you actually go outside of your circle when you're looking for people for your project versus staying within because you know what you know?
It's a great question. I mean, and like, getting into plugging your films. But the last film we did was American Reject, and we qualified for the diversity contract and that stuff, but not even we didn't go for it. It was, it's what we organically already were. But I think the thing is that we did, like, the major roles that we were in for were friends. Like, to your point, they're just, and honestly, Full Armor for me, is to create a covering of artists that we work with, that we find along the way, just like we find each other here. It's like, we're going to create a dialogue, and you grow in that relationship over time. And then that's how work happens. And so, but inevitably there's always roles. So you take American Reject, for example, we searched far and wide for those roles in there. And I mean, we needed to find a Filipino 10-year-old that could sing like Whitney Houston. That's wow. Like, you can't find that. Right. But at the same time, we had roles in there that, my wife wrote it, Kathleen, but they were based on people, and some had friends, but then there was some that we've searched. I mean, and I even locally, we tried to find a lot, and then we would go out and look. So I just always feel like, really, it's an answer of percentage, and just how much are you comfortable? Because I think it's kind of like your own dinner table. When you're a filmmaker, like you said, it's family, but it's like Thanksgiving, like we just talked about. There's always those few seats at the table that you got to invite. That's just going to create, because you want to change it up a little bit with your family, right? You don't want to, but you want to keep making films with your family. But I think I'm of the person who wants to create a couple open seats to create that kind of.
Okay. Just so long as it isn't Christmas dinner, like on the Bear.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yeah.
It's like, I got anxiety watching that episode, man. I was like, that was one of the best pieces of artwork I think I've ever seen on TV. Just that one episode. And Nick, have you seen the series The Bear?
I haven't watched it.
Oh boy.
I've seen this. You get
it's okay. It's hard. There's so many things to watch now. It's okay.
Right.
You missed it, but
that's
I highly
you get
recommend
that stuff
it.
on social.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Have you seen it, Frank?
Yeah.
Have you seen The
Bear?
Bear?
I was gonna say, I watched the pilot, and I was like, I need to circle back to it and finish it because it was so good, but it was so real, like family wise. I was like, I gotta sit down for this. I need to be ready for this.
Yeah, that's great advice for anybody who's gonna like watch The Bear. But I want to amend to what you were saying there, Frank, too, about just like and address also, Nick, your question, because I think about that too. And they're almost like separate ideas. And it's really, really hard to bridge the idea of DEI and quality filmmaking. Because when you go to do a equity raise, those people want to know that you have a team. They want to know that you're put together, that you can actually execute this, that you can actually make it happen. Well, you can't do that if you have a bunch of people you don't know on your team. And quality is deeply, deeply affected by changes, especially at heads of department, right? Like, you're not going to be able to avoid strangers, I shall say, or you're not going to be able to avoid that on the crew and the whole filmmaking team. And if you have different sort of teams and locations, you're going to have somebody there that's a mercenary. But as long as you have the same heads of department, then you can quality control. You can keep the same style, look, and tone that like you're known for, or that you're trying to sort of like. There's a reason why all of Tarantino's films look like Tarantino, why Aronofsky's film look like Aronofsky, Guy Ritchie, like it goes on and on, right? Wes Anderson's the most obvious one. One or two people in the wrong heads of department will change that look. Even your second AD, if they're not good with you, will change the outcome of your movie. So you're right, Nick. It's a conundrum because that is nepotism, I guess, but it's also necessary nepotism. Like if you don't have that, your movie will get.
No, man, it's called risk mitigation.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to, right? And buddy, like you said, it's okay to build a team, and we should build teams. That's a thing. But I get back to what Frank said, because I was actually going to ask the same thing. It's like maybe there's actually a percentage. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to, and it's kind of plays into both of what you're both saying. Basically, it's like it's a percentage, because I'm going to tell you 75% of it is core. Right, we're running with these 75% people all the time. The 25% might be a mercenary who's bringing us food, might be an actor or someone else who's got this other kind of part, and that's okay, because those are the open seats at the dinner table. Yeah. But I know 100% that my family is there, because if that person who sits in that open seat acts a fool, I got my people. Right? Like you're not going to take us down.
That's a great point,
because we're the 75%. So I think both points are definitely valid, and I like with it.
It also goes to just to keep the analogy of the table going, but Thanksgiving dinner looks a lot different than Christmas dinner, right? I mean, you might be making a film that's one way artistically, and it allows for that, the core and some more freedom, and you're going to have some fun on this one. And you might have one that's like, look, we need as little of people as possible, and there's just it's the styles. Like Christmas dinner is just going to look different, right? There just might be less going on, and you just want that kind of camaraderie of family. So, I think that kind of goes into it too. It's like more of like, what is the film? Because I do think that's a really real conversation that I've had with like really successful filmmakers. Like they just want to make film with the same people, and you see at the top levels, they just want to do it. It's,
because it's fun. Yeah. It's your friends. Why not? Like, there's nothing bad about it. And that's my point, is that there's nothing exclusive about it. That's not the intention. The intention is to, what is it? When we started doing the Make It podcast, that question we asked about what does it mean to make it? Mm-hmm. It's basically what? Making a living, doing what I love. Yep. And what more is that than doing what you love with people that you love, right? That's it. So all the other stuff can feel contrived. It can feel a little bit more forced. It's like, what do you mean now I have to go outside of my family and bring other people in because my family just happens to all look very similar? Mm-hmm. And I can see how that can be a challenge with folks. And for you, like you said, it hasn't been homogenous just by nature. Mm-hmm. So you don't even have to think about it, and it works out. But yeah, I was just curious if you were ever faced with that. But it looks like you have a couple open seats at the table, and your family looks, a little bit like this and a little bit like that. So it works.
It's a good question for the times, man, because 10 years ago, what was everybody talking about? The Bechdel test. oh, they didn't pass the Bechdel test. Now, like, what's going on?
Yep.
Then it moved to trans and black and color in film, and now it's DEI. So it just keeps morphing into this thing that us as producers kind of have to chase and get right, but not to the degree that, you know, it really destroys your film or maybe even a genre of films. Like, you know, someone asked me the other day, like, hey, it's been a long time since we've seen a dog movie, because I think there's a dog movie coming. And I'm like, yeah, it's because the last dog movie got tanked because at the day of release, somebody came out and said they abused the dog, and the movie tanked and everybody lost all their money. And that only has to happen one time, and everybody runs for hills. We're not doing any more dog movies. It's too risky.
At least not for the next 5 years.
Well, it's been a long time, man. They just did one, and I don't know.
Man, Hallmark does dog movies every other day. You're talking about.
I'm talking about feature releases and theatrical,
I know what
bro.
you're talking about.
I think this dog movie's coming out too. Sadly to say, I think this dog's mostly CGI, so it can't be abused.
Wow.
You talking about the comedy, like the Kevin Hart dog movie? Did that come out? Yeah,
that came out already. This is another one that kind of looks like a scrappy type Benji dog, like a slightly bigger Benji. God, I just aged myself, but kids under 30, people under 30, just go Google Benji. Google Benji.
Right.
It's the OG. It's not the OG. I guess Old Yeller's the OG.
Old Yeller, and then come on, there's one.
Wasn't there like a Beethoven with like a really big, or what was?
There's Beethoven. There's Old Yeller, and there's one more. One of the dogs was a cowboy.
Come on, man.
Was Old Yeller the cowboy? Lassie.
There you go.
Yeah, Lassie.
that's the OG.
Lassie make you cry, boy. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Lassie's.
Timmy fell down the well.
Lassie's no joke, but that's the whole thing. Is like, if you try too hard to make everybody happy, you end up failing everybody. And you know that dog movies may be a bad example, but it's one example of trying to do everything just so, and then you still couldn't, you know, someone still sort of turned their back on you that didn't get what they wanted, what you were supposed to do for this group, whether it be PETA or some other group. And now they're essentially blackmailing you. Right. And then you call their bluff, and then they tank your movie, and then that's it. And so it's an interesting crazy world. There is a little creep happening. By the way, I think we might talk about this in the newsletter, Nick. There's a little creep happening. I don't know if you're noticing this, Frank. There are two things that are like right in front of us, right? Like AI contracts with the actors with SAG and the WGA, which we can speak on a bit because we do want to talk about Average Joes as much as you're allowed to, and how you got this, how things have changed since the strike is over, since you got a SAG after exception on that, and what the process was like. But there's this little creep, and it's hiding, and it's just coming up slowly. I wonder if you both have noticed it. There is this void. Yep.
I'm like,
there's a few really scary faces over your shoulder.
Exactly.
Actually, like on both shoulders, there's like not a pleasant face on either side of you.
I was a little nervous, bro. Like, you keep talking about this little.
For those not watching on YouTube, Nick has a wall full of Lego. What would you call them?
Lego mosaics.
That's what I'm looking for.
Frank, these are all no set.
Come on,
this is just all stuff that I create with the kids.
I love that.
Hook it up.
These are. So Nick has a wall of at least 30 Lego mosaics, and over both of his shoulders are two very, very creepy ones. One is, I think, the Joker, and the other one is who, Nick?
Jack Skellington.
Jack Skellington. So yeah, and then he's got Luigi and Princess.
You know that
Zelda?
Right
yeah.
Oh, that's Black Panther.
Yo, you saw Zelda too, but you know that one right there. Thundercats.
Yeah,
bro.
he's Thundercats. That's right. Yeah, so it's just an amazing wall, and I love looking at it. But the creep here is that there is this giant void of male lead actors under 40. There aren't any. There's this link, and I think we'll end up putting it in the newsletter.
There's one.
And when you see this list, Nick, of names of actors, you will be shocked that all these people are over 40.
Oh no, man, there's one. And I see him in everything.
Timothy Chalamet?
Yeah, I was gonna
There it is.
But Timothy Chalamet can't do every movie, right? Like he's got Wonka coming up. Who knows how that's going to be?
Yeah.
But you got Timothy Chalamet. Here's what I counted. So I was on the phone earlier with a director friend of mine, and we were talking about this. And we could come up with under 40 that really make sense, that are really stars, Frank, that have a name that you can count on and bank on for box office, right? Like you're walking into the streamer or walking to AMC and you're trying to sell your movie at AFM even, right? I've got Timothy Chalamet. I've got Channing Tatum. I've got the dude that played Elvis, Austin Butler. And I've got John David Washington, like from Tenet and The Creator, like Denzel's son. I think that's it. Like, who else is under 40?
What about what's the guy's name who played Elton John? He's in Rocket Man.
Oh, okay. There's Tom Holland. I should mention Tom Holland.
Okay, Spider-Man. Yeah,
but I don't know that. I don't know that guy. Like,
he's.
I know what you're talking about.
He was leading Blackbird series. But anyways, I would say he's. But look,
the fact that we can't think of him is the point.
Yeah, Taron Egerton.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was also going to say the lead.
Taron Egerton.
Some of the leads in like.
I'd also say that
Us.
Well, I was going to say Get Out, right? Because they really.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he under 40? Like, there's Lakeith Stanfield. Like I think.
I was going to say Lakeith, but he's not. He doesn't hit the star.
He should.
He's been in there like
he's.
What about Garrett Hudlin? I mean,
I think he should get
he's
there,
super talented. Yeah,
but he's not there yet. Yeah.
So here are the names that are over 40. Just like like just off the top of my head. Of course, you have. There's nobody to replace Pacino, De Niro. Who's replacing Will Smith over 50? Brad Pitt over 50. Leonardo DiCaprio was 49 years old. Like, let that sink in.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal is 42. Bradley Cooper 43.
But to go back to your point about what the seasons we're in, right, as filmmakers, I was having a conversation with another producer friend of mine about this is going to sound funny, but just masculinity in the leading man. And I don't think it's ever, I don't think that 50-year-old stars that we're talking about, and, I hate to put everybody in that, but I don't think they match our De Niro generation. I don't think they match an Al Pacino and what these guys did to really bring this just masculine, full, just heart of a man into like some real vulnerable roles that we just haven't seen that. Who would play Taxi Driver? Michael B. Jordan? Yeah.
Who would do it?
Right. No,
that's under 40. Yeah, they're not using AI to replace actors. They're using AI to take the stars we know and make them look younger.
It's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
They did that with Tom Cruise in MI, right? The latest MI?
Yeah. Indiana
Jones. Like, they can't let Harrison Ford die. There's no replacement for him.
It also might even be a reaction to we don't have the A-listers like we had, just with the saturation in the golden age of stars. A lot of these are from the 90s, and that was just a different time. And you could build an A-lister, that we watched kind of erode, in a way. Like you just don't have that kind of superstar. Like I remember when they were saying like Jim Carrey was kind of the last actor, right? To have that like superstardom level.
Yeah. I got an idea, Frank. Let's play with this real quick. I could be totally wrong. I'm usually not. But, so what I'm thinking is there was something that we had back in the day that we don't have now. At least it is eroding as well.
Lick a stick.
We had commercials.
Oh,
stop that. Sorry. We had commercials. And that's where people had to cut their teeth as actors, was in commercial work. So if you look at all these actors you're talking about, they started out doing commercials, and then they kept doing commercials, and they just kind of kept going through and then maturating throughout that process. We don't have that now. Like, there's commercials at the Super Bowl, but like we avoid commercials, or our commercials are 15 seconds, right? Or 10 seconds or 6 seconds.
Oh, I see what you're getting at now. Because I'm like, a lot of actors do commercials, but that's what I'm saying. But we don't. You're saying we're not watching them, so we're not getting familiar with these people.
And those people aren't. I just feel like they're not growing through the commercial process. You see what I'm saying? But because a lot of them started at the age of 5. and then they were 7, and they were not. Even saying they grew up in the industry, and they became names that you were familiar with, and then they get put into these
Drew
roles.
Barrymore.
Exactly. So now, how does that work? When do they first cut their teeth at acting? Where do you find them? How do you know that they're professionals? Because these kids were professionals by the age of 12. They started at 5. I mean, 7 years. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a long time in the industry. 7 years, but you're only 12 years old, but you've been doing these things. And I'm just wondering if that's potentially part of why we don't have a core anymore, because you haven't built relationships over the course of 20 years. You mentioned, and with the industry. I mean, you mentioned DiCaprio. I mean, how young was he when he started?
Was Basketball Diaries his first thing?
No, he did something.
I don't know.
I mean, he did television. You know, he did.
You're right.
Show that he was on, but he's got the famous audition tape with De Niro. He did.
Yeah, I mean, but he's doing it from, as I'm saying, he did it from such a young age. And I feel like that's why also there's such big stars, is that they've been around for so long. They've done so many things. And like you said, from the viewer's perspective, we respect that journey. We've seen them in so many things. In some respects, many of us grew up with them.
Yeah.
And then you had the industry side of it, which is they grew up with them. They know them. They know their families, right? They've created relationships. They're built into the industry for a very long time, which is, again, I just don't know. What does it look like now? We don't do commercials like that anymore.
Yeah. But also, like, I just wonder,
a thought.
I wonder too, with just the amount of access that we have now to people and lives, like you used to not have the access, you know, you didn't know Harrison Ford, you know, in Indiana. Your only access was when you got to the theater to see them again. And you they became A-listers because you attach yourself to them. And you want to be in the movie theater with Julia Roberts. You want to be in there. And we always learn that as actors growing up. Like once you hit the A level, star status, you're not acting anymore. You're there to be you in that role. And, you know, so
beautifully put.
This is an element of like you have full access. You know Chris Pratt's world and where he lives and where he has a farm and how his kids are and that he's divorced. I mean, you know everything. And I just think, you know, it's like you could go into modern sports a little bit, you know, the same way. Like, we have full access into these worlds, and then it's not as whether we get tired of it or we just are with them elsewhere. We don't need to go to the movie theater to be with them anymore.
Is diluted. I think social media also dilutes it, for better or for worse. Sure. But it's, if you see someone on social media, well, just if you see people on social media that you follow that have 10 million followers, your whole experience with them is just via social. It's on your phone. But you might like them more than you like someone on the big screen. Right? They're more of a celebrity to you than someone else on the screen. But before, for us, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
That celebrity was only on the movies. Like, you only got to see them there. I was like, wow.
The age of like putting posters on your wall doesn't. Yes. It seems reserved for athletes now because, you know, or if at all. You make the point, Nick, a couple of weeks ago about how, like, maybe a couple of months ago, actually, when Barbie was out, that, you know, hey, this is just, it's great, but it's a long commercial for Mattel. And I agree with that.
Yep.
And I love the movie, on the record saying that many times, but it is a big commercial. And I think maybe that's how it's being done now. Like you do it through Disney, and Disney has these shows where, all the stars on those shows end up being your next movie stars, are musicians of late. And these Disney shows, you've seen how they play out, how they're written. It's terrible. And they are just commercials for Disney and commercials for the scripts. Many times, I think High School Musical, for example, those scripts are written as a platform to show off that person's talents. Because they have a long-term plan for them. I think Kurt Russell, by the way, fun fact, was the very first sort of Disney actor that came out of the Disney television machine and became a big star. And now Kurt's been in the business for 50 years. Like, that's a sustainable model, man. Like, Kurt knows where all the bodies are buried. Like, so,
The
so
mouse
that's,
won't play.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
dope. Okay. So before it gets away from us, what was it like getting the exception during the strike? And what happens now that the strike is over with that exception for average Joes?
Yeah, so that was a bit of a unicorn for us because we got a film for Full Armor that is just production services in New Orleans. So we were in charge of just fully casting and doing tax credits and getting that film off the ground in New Orleans. And so that was really, really interesting because, with SAG and being able to, obviously I'm part of SAG, and we knew it was coming. We knew that the project was funded and wanting to go, but it was really, I knew if we at least get into the application process and get it moving, that we should be good. And they wanted to go for the end of August was the start date. Ultimately, it was crazy with everything going on, obviously with the strike, with the writer's strike and also obviously the acting then kind of coming in behind it. We didn't really know where we were going to be as far as, is this going to be good? Should we keep moving forward? It wasn't a WGA project, so we knew we could. The strikes was looming for SAG, but we really wanted to be that kind of piece where we could at least give jobs. And then that ultimately, we got pushed about a month just to work out the paperwork with the interim agreement because it wasn't written. It was a work in progress. So we really became kind of one of the first round of guinea pigs for SAG because they were expedited everyone who was in production who had to halt because obviously they were burning money as it was going.
That's
so
right.
They expedited everything that was currently in production that could be proceeded with an interim agreement. And then we became the first kind of, all right, how do we do this? And it was a work in progress because you had agents and managers saying, don't talk to anyone without an interim agreement. We were kind of loosely approved by everything, showing finances and who the team was and where we were going. And then yet you had to write the agreement. It wasn't written. So ultimately it was about 3-4 weeks. We ended up kind of going through that process with SAG. And then we ended up being able to go for the end of September. We started and we were able to do production. So we were the only movie in production. It was about a 75-person crew. Honestly, it was a really kind of bittersweet project because being able to give that kind of jobs in that time for everyone, it was really great because we were the only movie going in New Orleans. In Louisiana.
Yeah, well, 3 to 4 weeks is not a long time. I mean, considering all that was going on,
Yeah,
that's not terrible.
No, and the fact that we could go and
exactly. And so I guess the question that the other side of Chris's question and that we were talking about earlier is like, okay, so you got the exception. Did the exception come with any constraints or rules that now are hindering you in this stage of the game? Like, is there certain things you couldn't do or whatever? Do you, now that the strike is over, does that hurt you at all?
I don't believe so. I mean, looking at the interim agreement, there was nothing, we just basically had to agree to everything that, obviously SAG was negotiating with the studios. And it was really easy to say yes to. I think that, you had to kind of figure out what was that, the residual thing going to be and all of that.
Yep.
We had to basically, just agree to all the terms. But and now that they have moved into post and it doesn't seem like it'll, hang up on anything. And we had already, what some people don't know too, the rates had already kind of gone up right at the beginning of July. The rates were due to go up. And so we had already kind of advised to go up on the budget, make sure everything was, where they needed to be going into that. Okay. So then really the rates were, you could say could have been, but it was all budgeted for.
But you didn't have the option to lock in the lower rate?
No, because it was already
the grandfathered rate.
Right. Yeah, it was already put forward. I think and we were DGA as well, and that had gone up at the beginning of July. So that was kind of all grandfathered in.
Yep. That's nice. Well, one thing that's fascinating that just jumped out to me is one film in Louisiana, because I don't think Louisiana gets the credit they deserve for their filmmaking community outside of Louisiana. Now, inside Louisiana, they definitely do. I mean, for those listening and watching, Louisiana was the first state to have a taxpayer incentive. Everyone else copied. And I think we talked about earlier, Nick, like up to 45 states did it. I think it's been sort of truncated back down to 35 states.
Yep.
But I know, I'm in the state of Tennessee, and we just copy and pasted Louisiana's program according to our executive director, Bob Rains. Shout out to Bob Rains. So yeah, everybody just copy and pasted Louisiana. So that film community, I feel like, has a head start on every other state that's not in California, that's not California or New York.
Yeah, we actually cut the trailer for the film office. I know we'll have like the fun fact period, but do you know the year that the first tax incentive was?
See, we've been messing around with this.
1992.
That's right, 1992. 30 years. We did the trailer for the film office because honestly, New Orleans is we kind of always joke inside of New Orleans. They just know that they have something good, so they don't promote any of it, right? Down to music,
that's what
jazz,
it is.
They had, like they just know it's there. And film was that. It was designed to help the local independent filmmakers when it was put in, and then obviously you had your John Grisham movies and those early '90s, and we have the team that I work with. The line producer Tracy Keller is on our team. She worked in Runaway Jury. The fun thing was like a lot of these guys came up through, there in New Orleans in the 90s. And we were actually able to put on this last movie. We got to put a whole crew, talk about family and table, that had actually gotten their start together from locations department. And they've all kind of gone off to have their careers and work on 12 Years a Slave and all the, big titles there in New Orleans, but they haven't worked together. So it was cool with the strike. What it did provide is a lot of guys that hadn't worked together in 20 plus years got to work together on this film.
That's so cool.
So that was really cool, but it's true. I don't think it gets enough love. I mean, I know all the numbers because we're constantly just trying to let everyone know in state how big of an industry we actually have there. I think it's still third in the States as far as how big. I think it moved to number one in 2013 before they kind of had their hiccup. And
what is the percentage now? What's the rebate? What's the grant rebate?
Crazy thing is, it's 40%. I still think it's the best in all the states.
Yeah, right. Come on.
we shot in Chalmette, which is just down the road from New Orleans. That actually has an extra percentage. We got this production up to 43.5. It gives you an extra 3.5.
How do you get that?
You have to shoot in Chalmette. So that parish, which is like they do parishes there in Louisiana versus counties. So that parish, which is like a county, if you shoot there, that actual parish will give you an extra 3.5 for all the spend that happens within its businesses and, real hard spends in that county. So
do they keep money in the pot though, Frank? Or is it one of the situations where you get there and it's depleted? And it's depleted.
No, they actually have it. I mean, I think they just extended it. So we're extended to 2030. It's 40%. There's different buckets. So there is a cap in the state. So it's 180 million. They do kind of go into the next year. So you're not left out. You're just kind of have to wait if that bucket that you're in. For independent filmmakers, we're as Full Armor, we're constantly promoting that. It's like come there to make it, because there's an independent film bucket, right? So it's kind of like I'm promoting against myself, because there's a whole that 10% of that is all set aside for independent filmmakers. And then you have a whole on top of it. If you are obviously a Louisiana resident and you're a Louisiana screenplay, there's a whole nother 10% that you get.
What's the minimum spend? Is it $250?
So if you're in state Louisiana, there's actually no minimum. So it's like,
are you serious?
Dude.
Wait, no. So,
right.
So you get a percentage back depending on what bucket you're in, regardless of what the budget of the film is.
Yeah. If you let's say you did now I will say, there's some fees. I think it's like $7,000 to apply, to the applications. You might want to be at like
that's interesting.
20K, 50K. I haven't done it that low, but you can, we've talked to different people with they might have a music video or different things. They could qualify. But I've had friends that have come down and done, 100, 200K films. But so on the bigger, if you're out of state coming in, the minimum is 300,000. So you're coming in, that's kind of if you're in the main bucket of the cap.
That's good to know. And is Louisiana still a Republican state?
Yeah.
Is it got a Republican governor?
Yeah.
And see, so this is always it's never said out loud. It's never said, directly. So I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth or but it is intimated. And I think I'm being fair by saying that it is intimated that, the reason why, Tennessee, for example, or some of these other southern states won't change a rebate is because, maybe you're filming blue city, red state.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I think Louisiana has just proven that doesn't have to be an obstacle.
Well, because it's industry, it's working.
It's working.
Right.
And look, I know the numbers because we just went and petitioned in Baton Rouge for this, right? So as our crew of like local filmmakers, we all rallied, and we have some really cool people leading the charge that are actually independent studio owners. And I've been really kind of championing that because I think we look at studio owners and we think the studios, we think LA, you think big, big money, that's all this stuff. But there actually are independent owners who actually run studios. And to me, that's the reason why we moved our company from New York there. One, because it was open. There was the hospitality. I'm from there, obviously, and I had my eyes set on it. And I was already seeing what was happening. But the minute I got down there and started seeing like, oh, no, this is completely open I could walk up to a studio owner and be like, could we work on your down months? Can we negotiate? What's going on? And we did that with American Reject. And it to me, it created something that's impossible as filmmakers. We don't think we have the ability to go into a studio or even that kind of controlled environment and help our film. And New Orleans makes that possible but I do think it's not all utopias. I will say Baton Rouge, it is a blue city in a red state. I mean, and there is a conversation of like, let's get rid of the film tax credit. And that is a topic that has to cycle through the politics. But these studio owners that are independently owned and all of the union, I mean, I think we have about just under 400 million on payroll. They say it's about 20 crews deep in the state. That's an industry. It did close to $1 billion in 21. Wait, no, 22, right? This year's down. So in 22, it was close, just under $1 billion in production. So, I mean, that's what you have to look at. Most people don't look at it. They're looking at the 180 million incentive, but you have to look at the 900 million that's coming in.
Right.
Like, don't look at the budget that's coming in. Don't look at the tax rate. And so there's a lot of politics that's in that, and I think it's a constant fight. But I knew this from New York, it was Manhattan versus, Albany, what I mean? It's just this like element of like, why are you making all the money? Why is everything going on down there? It's kind of the same thing. You got New Orleans, like someone up in Shreveport. It's like, how does this help me? But this last project we were on, it had football involved. We involved a bunch of schools. I was like making sure every council person knew that there was money going into the schools in these other counties that wouldn't have, parishes, but that wouldn't have been there before. So, you got to make people aware of how much we talked about it with the strike. You don't realize all the ancillary businesses that happen in and around this industry. And there's just so much more than what people know just looking at the screen.
Chris, man, we need to be down in New Orleans, man. Let's go.
Exactly.
We need a trip.
Well, believe it or not, I've been all around the world, but New Orleans is the one city I haven't been to. I know that people I shudder at it. Like, I'm like, I can't. I've been all these places, and and I'm a foodie on top of that, and I haven't been down to New Orleans. So now that Frank's down there, we can handle up, go down there. Maybe we could find a panel to hop on a film festival down there, something where we can contribute something beneficial to the indie film community. I don't want to just go down there for me. I want to do something for the filmmakers.
Bro, but we're talking right now to the man who has the golden key to the city.
That's right.
So
this is true.
I don't. Well, I think we'll be. But hey, I got a question. Is Tujog still down there?
Tujogs. Yeah, I don't think it is. That's a good question. I actually don't know if it is. We actually there's an article that just came out of like all the great spots that we've actually lost because. And you speak of Foodie Town. I kind of joke, it's not obviously New York, but there are so many new restaurants and there's so many new places to eat that it's kind of insane how much of a foodie town New Orleans is. So
that's speaking my language.
You got to come down. Yeah. It used to be before Katrina, it was all like, let me get the classic New Orleans cuisine. Now it's like hitting up places that have just some of the best different, foods that you're just celebrity chefs and, so
Yeah, but how do the New Orleans feel about that, man? Those folks, you got to get a po' boy.
Yeah.
It's like you want a po' boy the way a po' boy is supposed to be. You don't necessarily want a po' boy on a plate this big,
Right.
with 2 pieces of shrimp in it. You want a po' boy. So
no, it's funny. It's different.
as long
Like
as those places sold
being
in.
local, it's funny. It's like you want to go to all the new, like the hidden burger spot, the different things, because you already have your spots. Like we get our po' boys and our crawfish like Sundays, Saints games. Like that's our barbecue. Like that's our Outback. We have all that covered. Like we don't care. Go try to make your jambalaya with pasta. Go do all that. That's fine. That's not going to live here long. Like.
Right.
You go make a mean, piece. There's some Italian spots that came up, like different, like,
That's my favorite food, by the way, Italian food. It is. Yeah. It's just like the overall best, right? Like the variety of things you can get and the general flavor. I mean, like you really can't go wrong with Italian. That's just. I know some people might say like Japanese food. I mean, it's up there for me too, but like Italian, you can't go wrong, especially if you want to leave full. And you want to feel like you did something naughty. And here to just bringing up like what film productions bring into a state, we have the same situation where these things come up and it's like, why don't we just get rid of it altogether? Let's be a fiscally responsible state, balanced budget state. And then, our executive director in Tennessee, Bob Rance, will say Nashville brought in $700 million. Like the show Nashville.
Oh, wow.
$700 million. Like, so let's not get rid of this. And actually, let's support more shows like Bluff City out of Memphis and Lynn Stadler's down there. And so I think I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. But those revenues, that's really what our leaders lean on to keep these rebates sort of in place. I think it's interesting, too, what you talked about like independent studios. I think we have to do it. I actually think we're being forced into it. I was on the phone with the producer earlier this week. He produced the movie Ad Astra. It was one of his movies, and he has another one, The Water Diviner. Anyway, he's done some movies, and he was saying that like what's happening underneath our noses is that the streamers are going out and booking studios in the UK and all around where the best rebates are and booking them out for years so that if you don't contract with them, you can't use their studio and you can't get any of their resources. You actually can't get on a soundstage. And so you have to go out. Cause I said, well, what's the weirdest thing you've resourced? He's like, I have like a spreadsheet that has every abandoned warehouse in the country on it.
Wow.
Like that's dope to me. Like this is where the mindset is for the independent producer right now. It's like, let me go find out because commercial real estate's down 30%. Yeah. Let me go find like where all the empty abandoned warehouses are in the country. And let's just see if we can get one and make a studio or a soundstage out of it.
Right.
Because then you own the vertical.
Mm-hmm. Right. You do.
And if you don't do that, you're literally going to be fighting Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Warner, Universe. Like you're going to be fighting all of them, not just for talent anymore, where they'll contract the talent out and that talent's locked up with that studio. But now you're going to actually have to compete with them for sound stages.
Right. Yeah. The good friend of mine in where we shot at the ranch. We weren't on the stage proper, but we were in their production offices for this, this budget film. And it was decent indie film, but it was the guy who started the ranch, a good friend of mine. He was a locations manager who did Terminator there, got the lows for the production, and then kept the contract after. It was like, it was empty. It was a flagship spot, converted into a studio, and then bought the grocery store next to it with his partners. And they have over close to 500,000 square feet of space that they're now the main tenant for AMC. They've shot Interview with the Vampire, Bill and Ted. They've done they've done over $1 billion in just 8 years of just production. And it's that empty warehouse. Like this is, to me, the thing is, when I was traveling around LA, when you're sitting there you look at all the major studios, you just dream to jump the fence and go make your film, right? Yeah. You see all of the sets, the things, because that's what we do at heart. You kind of look at what locations do you have? I have a cabin, I have a thing, you're always looking at that area. But now when you start to make film, you start realizing I need the octopus. I need like the one made spot, and I need to like just be in this area.
Everything around
and you
it.
want that kind of uncontrolled, controlled environment. And I think that independent version of that is exactly where we're going. And I think we're going to head into a really, really great time for independent film with everything. Because I think the dirty secret with coming out of the strike is that the pocketbooks are all tight. They're going to be tighter. You're not going to make as much. Like there's an agreement, like whether we like to admit it or not, that I think the money that's being lost is real. I think the money that's being made is real. And I think it just won't be spent as much. And I think there has been there is a fatigue, right, in the content area. Like I think you can kind of see that fatigue with the amount of outlets and stuff. So you're going to see I think because we were always developing, but we knew the money stopped a year before the strikes. So we knew like they were stopping. Like there wasn't new shows being made. And I don't think you're going to see as much come back is really what's going to happen. But what is that going to do? It's going to create this huge, I'm already hearing and talking to certain like executives that they're looking to get out of the studio to go make, because there's still filmmakers that are, there on salary within the studio too. And I don't think that heart changes. So
what happens if I'm an independent filmmaker? Can you just tell me, how do I approach? Because I don't know if I would give this advice. Chris, you can jump in on this too, but independent filmmakers, I feel like they should be going to studios to try to make a better version of the project that they want to make, as opposed to just trying to make it on their own. But I think they do have that mindset, like Chris mentioned earlier, that all the studios are Disney. All the studios are things that you can't touch, but they don't think about the independent studios. So if you could speak to independent filmmakers who want to make a low budget film, but they want to do it right, what's the best way to approach an independent studio to make their film?
I think obviously it's what you guys say a lot, which is like, it's kind of starting where you are, right? Like are you in a city, and what is that community? Because I think that's what we sought out. Because I think, did I hear you right? Were you saying as an independent, you would advise going to the majors, like pitching and?
No, I would advise going to an independent studio as opposed to just doing it on their own, like getting the crew together, making it happen. Because the difference between you doing it in the yard, doing it at your friend's house, the studio, that's what they do day in and day out. They understand the business of this. They understand the locations of this. They understand all of this. You just need to take your independent thought, your creativity, and then funnel it through a channel that does this on a regular basis. But like I said, I don't think they think about that. I think they're like, oh, I can't get a studio. They're too big. No one's going to take me. I'm like, that's not true though.
It's not true. You're right. I think you have an idea of your budget or what you can do. And I think it's always good to start there. Right. So it's like, how much do I have? And you're still a project. Like, so these are still businesses. Like they still have bottom lines, and they make their money in different ways. And so, it's like a movie theater. There is empty real estate in a movie theater between Monday and Thursday. They're still trying to figure out how to put people through. And the only way they make money is through concessions. So it helps them to have people, right? Like through Monday to Thursday. If you can answer a problem. So if you're a movie and you have a budget of $300,000, and it would help you to have some form of studio environment, meaning some kind of controlled, whether it's office space or something. Like for us with American Reject, we needed to create a reality show. We were a comedy based on a reality singing competition. We pitched to all the majors. We were told we couldn't make it by X, and so that was not possible. So we knew we needed a stage. So that's what got us knocking at a door. I think if you're in Nashville, like there are stages, there's studios, and I guarantee you they have empty spaces and they have empty times. Their calendar is not 100% full. So if their occupancy is at 80%, go be the 20%, go find time that they need it. And just, that's what we did. We were like, when are you empty? And what would you give it to us for? And what's your bottom line? And can we, and you just, because you're still business to them, because you still have a budget. And then you just see on your loose leaf paper, can it fit? Can $1 a square foot that they're going to give me fit in the budget, or does that warehouse down the street where the guy who doesn't know film at all, is that better? And then you can decide, and you're in charge. Like at the end of the day, what does your film need?
That's the whole thing right there, because the challenge, Nick, really is what is your story? Mm-hmm. And what is your budget? Because if your story requires someone to build a set, or it needs a giant LED screen or something like that, now, yeah, you got the studio and it's an independent studio, but I don't need it. My story happens, on a mountain range, or I need it, but I can't afford it. It's not as if you can just sort of go in there and just shoot exactly what you want. So I think the advice is sound, but your script and your budget have to align with that business that is that independent studio. Mm-hmm. In terms of four-walling, I think it's an interesting concept as well. Hey, AMC, you're empty Monday through Thursday. It's funny you bring it up. We talk about this a lot. Like, people don't understand necessarily that a theater is a real estate business. It is a density business, actually, more than it is a movie business. But some of these art houses, now this is interesting because this is like inside baseball stuff that will keep you from doing what you want to do. I heard from an art house director, no names, that they had to stop letting filmmakers four-wall, even if they paid for the seats, and then had to sell against it like a promoter. Mm-hmm. Because the Academy of Arts and Sciences would take their license away and stop distributing studio films that filled their seats during the week. Right?
Because they were creating competition.
Right. So this idea of this art house theater shows all the sort of movies that your Regal and AMC won't run on a big screen, right? They're showing the art house movies, the Academy Award movies, and they won't get those anymore, which is their bread and butter, if they show your indie film and they get caught doing it. And I'm like, wow. Okay. So again, systematic wall that you have to jump as a creator, and you have to be able to, as a producer, you have to create a deal with a distributor that allows your film to not be seen as the kind of film that the Academy of Arts and Sciences would shun.
I would say this would be, and I'm not saying this is going to be foolproof, but every theater, that art house owner has a booking agent, and they book through somebody. And I would ask them, if I was going to it, who books you? Mm-hmm. And can I just have that contact? Because you've got to go through the way, what that ultimately says is the channel. So I know the Britannia Theater locally. I know the guys who run it. I know a really great Ben Zeitlin, Beast of Southern Wild. He started a group that they have a love chain letter of filmmaking you can watch every Thursday night locally that he's put together, because every filmmaker's every theater is built on trying to get their local audiences in. So they're trying to fill up those seats. So if you're only coming in for the one night, you're right. It's probably, they're like, I can't do that. But if you're coming to answer a bigger problem, you're like, all right, who books you? What, can I talk to them? And can I get my title booked through them? And that's who you start talking to, because if that's his roadblock, that's the way I would do it.
Amen. And then that's just another reason to have a really smart marketing plan. So you can say, this is how I'm going to get asses in seats here for you during this slow period for you. And I love that idea. And by the way, I should just caveat that not all art house theaters or theaters in general have these license deals with the Academy of Arts Sciences. It's just one of these things you do in this theater, I think they said they were grandfathered in. It's just something you do if you want to show a certain type of movie all the time, January through December. All right, guys, I think it's time for things we should know.
You should.
And our favorite and most terrifying segment of the podcast, producer Papa Bear, will you join us and give us a thing we should know?
All right. Well, since we have a guest that has a family and business tie to a historic hotel which we have not discussed yet.
It's true. I didn't want to put them on Front Street, but yes.
Yeah, that's for Papa Bear.
So, well, maybe Frank, you could tell us a little bit about that connection before I give what the question is for the night.
Sure. Yeah. So my family has one of the longest family-owned hotels in the United States. Still one of the largest. That was started in 1886, called the Monteleone Hotel in the heart of the French Quarter.
Exactly. And so I thought I would come up with something that was an intersection between hotel and film. And so let's go for this. This is a kind of a two-parter.
Oh, God.
The first feature film with the title Hotel was released in 1967.
Took that long. Oh, that's amazing.
The film was an adaptation of Arthur Haley's 1965 novel of the same name, Hotel, which featured a fictional Hotel St. Gregory. Here's the question. What actual famous hotel was the fictional Hotel St. Gregory based upon, and how many other feature films have since been released with the simple title Hotel?
So the whole title is Hotel.
The whole thing. It's not.
Hotel.
It's not even. It includes. Hotel.
It's not Hotel,
It's just Hotel.
Rwanda. It's not,
Right.
Hotel Fear. It's just Hotel. How many films have since been released with the title Hotel?
Okay, so Nick, I just want to clarify for you. That's Arthur Haley, not Alex Haley.
Right.
And the answer to the first question has to be Frank's Hotel, right? Like it has to be the first part. Like it's a layup, right? Like
he's gonna give it to us, right? Right?
Is that right or wrong, Papa Bear?
That's wrong. You want to know?
Jesus Christ!
Who that novel?
I was going to get it wrong.
Bro. Like we're not gonna know this.
You're going to get it wrong, Frank.
Well, yeah, Frank. Do you have a guess? You're a part-time hoteler or part of the family. Like, Do you know what the St. Gregory was actually sort of mimicking with Hotel in the 90s?
So do I have the question right? You're saying there was a title of a movie in 1967 called Hotel.
That's correct. And it was based upon an actual historic, famous hotel. What hotel was that?
Oh, you're saying it was based on a famous hotel, not in the fictional one.
And not your hotel, apparently.
Yeah, the fiction in the novel and in the film, it was called Hotel St. Gregory. But Arthur Haley based that hotel's character off of an actual hotel.
I'm going to guess the Carlisle.
Okay, that's a good guess.
I have another guess, by the way.
There's only 3 hotels, by the way, that was in the probably in the 1800s. So it's and the Carlisle was one of them. So I'm guessing it's one of those 3. It was based
Nick, do you have a
give
guess?
us what are the other 2? I have no guess, man. What are the other 2?
I'm going to guess the St. Regis.
Mm-hmm. Good guess. Okay, the actual hotel is about 3.5 blocks from Frank's Hotel, the Roosevelt in New Orleans.
No way. I'm so mad at that question. That's why I don't know it.
These are things we should know, Frank. And now you should know this, and now you know it. And I don't know how you're going to wield this power in the future.
No, I don't need I've consciously blocked that out on purpose, and I'll continue.
And that film was directed by Richard Quine. I don't know if anyone's heard of him or not.
All right. And okay, what's the second half? I don't know the second.
Well, how many films have been made since then?
That just have the name Hotel.
Just have the name Hotel.
I'm going 5 because Hotel has 5 letters.
That's logical.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like when your girlfriend or wife picks the right guess over and over and over again on a football game based on the colors, and you get so pissed off. I think the blue team's going to win.
I study this game.
Oh my god! And the blue team won. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going 13. What are you going, Frank?
I'm going under. I'm going 3.
Okay, Papa Bear.
Well, Ding, 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 Chris. 5 additional films, a total of 6 films.
So a total of 6.
A total of 6.
He's close then. He's close. 5 more. That's awesome.
But I tell you what.
Well, wait a second. We already knew one of them was Hotel. I got it right. Yeah.
No,
one of them was the one in 1967. And then
all 6 of them.
But your question was how many more were, so technically.
How many more
He's right.
films were released? There was one in 1981 titled Hotel. One in 2001. One in 2004. One in 2013.
Wow.
One in 20, and one just come out this year in 2013. And it's a comedy.
In 2023, you mean?
2023.
2023. It's a comedy out of Iran.
Okay.
There you go.
Is it also based on the Roosevelt?
All of these had their own storyline, not based on that. One is from India. One is from
Bollywood.
Italy in the UK and USA. And then one is from Austria and Germany. One is from Sweden and Denmark. And then the latest one from Iran. So,
nice.
And I'll top it off with a little more information.
Okay. Little cherries here.
He's going to top
chocolate
it off.
salt.
Yeah, a little amaretto.
Movies that have the word hotel in their title.
Salt Bay.
Now, it might be like Hotel Rwanda or Hotel Fear. There's been
Hotel
41
Transylvania.
of those.
Yeah.
There's been 41. TV series with the word hotel in their title. 26 TV series have had the word hotel.
Well, let me tell you something here, Producer Paul. Let me tell you something, Nick. No other podcast is talking about this today. I know that.
No.
I know that.
We're it.
If we hear somebody talking about hotels, hotel movies and TV shows, we know they're totally swagger jacking us.
That's right.
That's right. But I don't.
That's right. 100%.
But fortunately,
Yes,
I don't
we're
think we're
checking
going to
for
have to
this.
worry about that, sir.
Tell you what,
No, we'll see.
I think
we're
good.
We'll see.
here's one more hotel thing.
Are you kidding me?
Frank
He's
will
got
actually,
another one.
well, Frank will actually know this.
Okay.
Maybe all 3 of you. What New York City hotel is the most filmed hotel?
Jeepers.
It's got to be the Waldorf Astoria. Got to be, right? Waldorf Astoria?
I'm going to guess the Plaza.
Ooh, that's a good guess.
I was going to go Trump Tower, man. Like it's one of those, like one of the Trump hotels. Like,
Well, see, I was right. Frank did know this. It is the Plaza.
Frank's
There
the
you
man.
go.
Classic.
Change his name to
who's
Frank
the man?
White.
Freaking Papa Bear's the man because he knew that Frank was going to get it and we would get it wrong.
Producer Papa Bear, thank
The
you.
Plaza had North by Northwest, Sleepless in Seattle, even though it's in New York, The Great Gatsby, and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Yep, Lost in New York.
Wow. And that one did have, that Trump was in Home Alone too.
That's right.
Lost in
Yeah,
New
he
York.
was.
So that's
He was.
so bring it all the way back to Trumpy.
So
The orange one.
He was in the
There it is.
hotel. He was in the
orange
hotel.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No shout out to Trump, but thanks
All right.
for all the entertainment. Trump is like when O.J. Simpson showed up in those Naked Gun movies. It's like, God dang, man, you're so good in those damn movies. Why'd you have to
He
kill
was
those
in
people?
all of yeah.
You could have been.
Yeah,
you could have been the next. Like he's hilarious. He's the next Red Fox.
What?
He was hilarious. He was hilarious, and he blew it.
No.
Let me ask Frank a question real quick before I leave you.
Yeah.
Is it correct that you're planning on making a film about your hotel, your family hotel?
Yes, we are currently in development for a series, actually.
Heck yeah.
A TV series based on our the centerpiece of the hotel in the French Quarter.
Fantastic.
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be dope.
Yeah.
I love that. Cool. And I will visit it when I make my virgin trip to the French Quarter there, to New Orleans, whatever. How should I be saying? How should I be saying it? Because I'm terrible at pronunciation.
Nolans, bro.
Nolans. Okay, good. Everybody on this podcast, this audience knows I mispronounce things more than anyone, and have no apologies for it.
I'm right there.
That's awesome. Thank you, producer Papa Bear. That was an incredible
appreciate you.
things we should know the
That's
most
right.
fun and frustrating segment on the Make It podcast.
Right.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that was
Well,
good.
I love it.
well, Frank,
I love
I'll
it.
tell you what else is perfect has been this conversation. I've just enjoyed having you on, Nick. I know you feel the same way. Do you have anything
man.
to leave us with, Nick? Any last questions for Frank before we
No,
leave him
man. Because here's the
for round
danger
one
in it.
here?
Exactly. You and I are having so much fun that we could just continue going. And I know that we got to save some more for a round two. So I don't have any more questions. All I got to do is just say thank you, man. This has been awesome. We appreciate you. This has been a great conversation. And like I said before, it's all about making new friends in this awesome, amazing industry that we're in. And we really do feel like we made a new one tonight. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. Good to have you.
No, man, same here. You got, like I said, when I got on it, you got a lifer in me. You guys, you hit on all the spots. This was great. I'd be happy to do it again. Seriously, you guys I love it. I love everything you got going.
Thanks, man. That
Awesome.
means the world
Appreciate
to us.
you, man.
And before you get out of here, can you tell everybody listening where they can find you on social media, find you on the internet, see some of your work, anything you want to share?
Yeah. So Full Armor Films is our company. It's fullarmorfilms.com. We're on social, on Instagram, just under Full Armor Films, X, all that stuff. And then have a YouTube page. And then personally, I'm Frank J. Monteleone. So, on all Instagram and stuff like that, you can see our personal stuff up there. But yeah, look forward to come check it out. We got American Reject that just came out. We got some films coming out and this next year that we're excited about. So yeah,
Beautiful.
come down to New Orleans, make some movies.
Awesome.
Well, hey man, we'll definitely be down there pretty soon. It's on the bucket list, and here. If you're listening to this, watching this, do what Frank says. Go check out his movie American Reject that just came out. Follow him, support him. He's a real independent filmmaker trying to do his thing out in the world. And this audience and this show is all about putting your money where your mouth is and actually supporting these creators that just enrich and make our lives better. You know where to find them on social, at Instagram, on X, at let's see, make sure I get this Full Armor Films. That's ARMOR, or is it spelled the English way?
No, United States way. Yeah. ARMOR.
MOR. Okay. So without the U film. So go check them out. You can find us at _Make It Podcast on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook by just searching for Make It Podcast. You can find us on X at _Make It Podcast. We are uploading full episodes to X now. You can find us on YouTube. All you have to do is search for Make It Podcast. We will come right up. The YouTube page is just there's a cornucopia of content
right.
there,
You
short
go.
form, long form stuff for you to dig your teeth into, dig your claws into as a filmmaker. If you want to reach out to Nick directly, you can email him at nick@bonsai.film. That's BONSAI.film. Let him know what you think about perspective being upside down on his t-shirt. For those that are watching, let him know if you hate that or love that. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on X at Flame in Your Heart. You're spelled UR, or you can just type in Chris Barkley. I will come right up and we respond to 100% of those messages. Last but not least, go to bonsai.film/subscribe to subscribe to our free newsletter. We put it out every 2 weeks. We compile things from all around the world of film, the esoteric, the things you can't find, and put it all in one spot for you so that it's easy for you to be on top of what's coming around the corner in film outside of sort of listening to us talk on this podcast. So with that long diatribe, I will hand it over to Nick to leave us with the credo.
Dang, when he starts talking like that, I'm like, my mouth gets bad. You know what I'm saying? So with that, I have to say to all of our filmmaking friends, fans and family out there, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, Frank, talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, man, we'll do it again.
All right. Be good.
Yep. Thanks, fellas.
Peace.
Appreciate you.